Hi everyone, we're on to part B of our quadratic equations practice cat. We're going to start with question 1a, where I'm going to expand the brackets. So I'm going to do 2x times x makes 2x squared, plus 2x times 4 is 8x. And I can't add any like terms there. With b, we've got two binomial brackets, and so I'm going to use FOIL. The first times the outside times the inside times the last. And so I end up with x times x is x squared, x times minus 8 is minus 8x, plus 3x minus 24. Now just check and see, you should have some like terms. So the minus 8x plus 3x is minus 5x minus 24. Then we're going on to expanding two brackets of x minus 6 squared. So this is a place where you can make a mistake really easily by just assuming that it will be x squared minus 36. It won't. You need to use FOIL unless you know the rule for expanding a perfect square. What you end up with is two lots of the 6x in the middle and the squared minus 6 and the x squared. So it's x squared minus 12x plus 36. So just be really careful with that one, you don't make a mistake. The next one, you can see that it's actually a difference of two squares. You've got two brackets and one's a minus and one's a plus. So you could actually do the shortcut, but I'm going to use FOIL. And so I end up with 4x squared plus 14x minus 14x minus 49. And I end up with 4x squared minus 49. And just noting that it is a difference of two squares, and that's why we lose the middle terms. Next one is just a basic expanding two brackets, so I'm multiplying 3x times 2x and getting 6x squared. Then I'll get 15x minus 8x minus 20. Add your like terms, so plus 7x minus 20. And then we're on to our next one. Now with this one, I'm going to leave the 3 at the front and just expand the two brackets. And I'll get x squared minus 5x minus 2x plus 10. And then at the end, first of all, I'm going to gather my like terms. And then at the end, I'm going to multiply everything through by 3. So I'll get 3x squared minus 21x plus 30. Okay, question 2. We've been asked to factorise. So with my first one, I've got two terms, but before I start looking at that, I'm going to actually see that both terms can be divided by 5. So I'm going to take 5 out of the bracket, and I'm going to end up with x squared minus 9. Then I'm going to recognise that in that bracket is a difference of two squares. I've got x squared minus 3 squared. So I can leave the 5 at the front, and now I'm going to write x minus 3, x plus 3. Okay, my next one, it also has two terms, and they look like square numbers, and they're separated by a minus, so it's a difference of two squares. But I have to write each term as something squared. Now that I've done that, I'll just use the rule, which is the first term minus the second term, first term plus the second term. So that is now factorised. With 2c, it's just a basic monic quadratic, and so I'm thinking of the numbers that multiply to make minus 35 and add to make 2, and I've got 7 and negative 5, and so that actually is factorised already. That was quick. Same with the next one. I've got 64, the numbers that make 64, but add to 16 are x plus 8 and x plus 8, and we can write that as x plus 8 squared. And you might actually recognise before factorising it was a perfect square, and just be able to go straight to that x plus 8 squared. With e, always check with all of the factorising you do whether you can divide through by a factor. So I can see that I can take 2 out first, and then I'm thinking of the factors of 12 that add to minus 7, and I've got my two numbers there, so it's factorised. Now with f I've got 4 terms, so that makes me think I need to group 2 and 2. So here's my first 2, so I can see x is common, and I get left with x minus a, and in the next 2, 9 is common, I get left with x minus a. So I bring the x minus a out because it's common, and then what's left goes into the second bracket. Okay, question 3. We have to solve these quadratics, and that means that we have to find answers for x. So I can see I've got 2 terms, but actually both of them have got x in it. So I'm going to take x out the front, and then I'll get x times x minus 9 equals 0. And now I'm using the null factor law. X can be 0 or x minus 9 can be 0. And so I just have to solve that last equation. I get x equals 9 and x equals 0. So there's 2 answers, which is often what we get with quadratics. The next one, you might recognise a difference of 2 squares, but it's not a square number 2, so we're going to force it to be one. And so we end up with x plus root 2, x minus root 2 equals 0. And therefore, x is negative root 2 and x is positive root 2, just using that null factor law. Okay, with part C, I've got 4x squared equals 100. I'm actually going to move the 100 to the left and make it equal to 0. Then I can see that they're both divisible by 4, so I'm taking the 4 out the front. And in the bracket, I recognise now I've got a perfect square, difference of 2 squares. X squared minus 5 squared. So I can factorise x minus 5, x plus 5 equals 0. Now to solve, each of those brackets gets put equal to 0. So x will be 5 and x minus 5. And the 4 is ignored in this instance. All right, the next one, factors of 15 that add to 8. So I've found 5 and 3. Haven't written out my mini equations, but basically x plus 5 equals 0. So x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 3. With E, I'm going to multiply 6 and minus 3 because it's a non-monic quadratic. This is what I do. And I think of the factors of minus 18 that add to 7. So I'm thinking 9 and negative 2. I'm now going to break up that 7x into plus 9x minus 2x. So I'm writing everything else the same, but I'm replacing the 7x with 9x and minus 2x. And now I'm going to group 2 and 2. So 3x comes out, 2x plus 3, minus 1, 2x plus 3. That gives me, my first bracket is 2x plus 3, my second is 3x minus 1, and then I have to make each bracket equal to 0. So I write 2x plus 3 equals 0, and 3x minus 1 equals 0, and I'm going to solve each of them. So I'm moving the plus 3 to the right, and then I'm dividing by 2. And then with the next one, I'm moving the minus 1 to the right, it becomes positive, and then I'm dividing by 3. So I get my 2 answers. Okay, question 4. I have to find the exact solutions to x squared plus 10x plus 7 equals 0, and they suggest to complete the square. So my first step is to halve the middle term, and half of 10 is 5. And I'm going to put a circle around that to remind myself to use it later. I square it, and I get 25. And now I add and subtract. So I'm going to write x squared plus 10x plus 25, because I'm adding it and subtracting it, plus 7 equals 0. And what that does is makes those first 3 terms will factorise to make this nice perfect square. And that number in the circle is what goes in there. Then just work out that minus 25 plus 7 is minus 18. Now, we have got a difference of 2 squares, but I had to force it to be a perfect square, so I've sort of skipped a step here. So I've got x plus 5 plus root 18, x plus 5 minus root 18 equals 0. So x will be the opposite of each of those when you do your null factor law. There's your two solutions. X is negative 5 minus root 18, x is negative 5 plus root 18. Now, when I get to the end there, I can see that the square root of 18 can be simplified. So remember your surds to 3 root 2. So I'm just going to rewrite my answer, but instead of having root 18, I'm going to write 3 root 2 in its place. Okay, question 5. Find the exact solutions to 2x squared minus 7x plus 4 equals 0 using the quadratic formula. So let's write out the quadratic formula. It's negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Which means we need to know what a, b and c are. So in our equation, a is 2, b is negative 7 and c is 4. So I'm going to plug those in. And just remember that if b is negative 7, then negative b is 7. So I'm going to write 7 plus or minus negative 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times 4 all over 2 times 2 because it's 2a. And let's just go through and simplify this. So I've got plus or minus square root of 49 minus 4 fours are 16 times 2 is 32, all over 4. We'll simplify again. 7 plus or minus the square root of 17, all over 4. And we're asked to leave it in exact. We can't simplify that surd anymore, so it's just 7 plus root 17 on 4, or 7 minus root 17 on 4. And that would be your answer. If you were asked for 2 decimal places, you'd have to convert them to decimals, but we were asked for exact. So these two answers are exact. So I hope that helped you out with how to answer all of those short answer questions. Make sure you can actually take screenshots of each of the slides for your notes, or you can just press pause and catch up with it and write your notes down as you go. So think about using those two techniques to get some copies of it.